How about those PS5 game reveals, huh? That sure was an event, wasn't it? Yeah? Just please note that this has all been recorded before the PS5 reveal event, but if NAC 3 isn't announced, burn it all down! The dead shall inherit the earth, but they would also apparently dominate the gaming landscape for years and years. It's been hard to escape zombie games over the 7 years or so, with them popping up in new entries in beloved franchises, in-game modes dedicated entirely to pushing them back, and even in iterations where you could argue that they aren't even undead. With years of PS4 zombie games to look back on, it's time to see what Sony's big black rectangle offers those who love nothing more than to take on hordes of shufflers. In this list you will find games that offer an almost impossible challenge against an endless sea of dead faces, a third-person action title that many believe to be the best of the 2010s, and also, a grand conflict between sunflowers and zombies. Think we missed any of the best PS4 zombie games on our list? Be sure to let us know down below in your biggest and sauciest undead moans. Number 10. Zombie Army Trilogy. Perhaps the best example of the mindless fun that zombie games on the PS4 can provide, Zombie Army Trilogy is not what you could call a thinking man's game. There are a lot of zombies, and you have to kill them with your friends in tow, one slow motion bullet to the decomposing nut at a time. That's really all there is to it, though it's infinitely more rewarding than it may seem. Yours for relative pennies these days, Zombie Army Trilogy features similar action to another Rebellion IP, Sniper Elite, though with far less need to be stealthy. Instead, you simply seek to purge World War II Europe of its zombie plague, either in co-op or solo across 15 increasingly bombastic levels. We're not saying that more games need to let you take on Zombie Hitler, but we're not saying it either. Want something a bit newer? The fourth game, Dead War, is just as good. Number 9. They Are Billions. Comfortably one of the most stressful zombie games you will ever play, They Are Billions asks you to make a desperate attempt to repel certain doom at the hands or teeth of an absolutely gigantic zombie horde. Considering that just one stray zombie inside your walls can cause an outbreak that's almost impossible to contain, and that the game doesn't really tell you what to do, it's no mean feat even getting to that point. Set in an alternate steampunk timeline, you must gradually build up your little town from a few tents to the might of industry with military force that can match. Your best bet for survival? Pausing. It sounds a little silly, but just taking a second to properly absorb the chaos can be the difference between an utter loss or some unfortunate casualties. Oh, good luck trying to save scum your way to glory too. You don't get to save when you choose. They Are Billions offers billions and billions of panic attacks, but in a fun way. Number 8. Zombie! A game like so many third-party titles, sent out to die on Wii U by virtue of being on the Wii U, Zombie was suitably reborn on other consoles and Steam in the hopes of finding it the audience it deserved. Playing a little like Dead Island, but set in London with a greater emphasis on sheer survival, Zombie leans on first-person melee action with an interesting twist. Permadeath. Once a character dies in Zombie, that's it, they're gone. You awaken as someone completely different with an interesting dilemma. Do you go back to where your old character died to retrieve their stuff? Or do you just go for a fresh start that might leave you under-equipped, but crucially alive? Zombie asks you to make a lot of tough calls as you traipse around Buckingham Palace and many of London's most famous landmarks. Can you bash in the Queen's head? Play this underrated gem and find out. Disclaimer, we do not endorse the murder of a 400-year-old woman, even if a zombie. Number 7. Killing Floor 2. It's very easy to call Killing Floor 2 a simple Left 4 Dead clone and leave it at that, but Tripwire's co-op PvE offers more than enough to distance itself from Valve's iconic franchise. The most notable difference is the slightly more chaotic wave-based action and also nonsensical tone that features a firm trying to create military soldiers with disastrous results. Like a lot of zombie games you will find on the PlayStation 4, Killing Floor 2 isn't some grand reinvention of the simple joy of putting a bullet or a few hundred in zombie brains. Instead, you start around by picking your perks and the skills that come with them, and then utilising classes to make sure your team is a well-oiled zombie killing unit. Despite being out for a little under half a decade, Tripwire will continue to support the game for a long time to come, so it's as good a time as any to hop into the balmy fray. Number 6. World War Z. A lot of people probably owe Saber an apology for writing World War Z off so early, us included. A seemingly far too late video game adaptation of a movie that had slipped way out of the public consciousness in the years following release. This Left 4 Dead inspired romp had flop written all over it, but it somehow miraculously turned out to be one of the best co-op shooters on the PS4. There's not much about World War Z that you could say pushes the zombie subgenre forward, apart from the detailed hordes of zombies screeching their way towards you at once. You don't forget the first time you see a legion of them in the distance, making their way towards you in eerily quick time as the sheer scale of them comes into clearer focus. With great post-launch support, surprisingly likeable characters, despite them being a who's who of tropes, and satisfying gameplay, World War Z is one of those rare cases where the video game is undoubtedly better than the movie. Based on how well it performed, we may see a second World War Z game before we even get a second movie. Can we also just talk about how grim it is that Brad Pitt gurns his way through a can of Pepsi like the most blatant advertising ever? At number 5, Days Gone. Despite what you might have heard, Days Gone is a great game, one of the best open world titles on the PlayStation 4, and also a thrilling zombie-killing adventure. Well, technically they're freakers and not zombies, but if people still call Frankenstein's monster just Frankenstein, Ben may have to let that one go. You play as Deacon St. John, an initially difficult-to-love protagonist who carries a weight of guilt around with him as he bikes across a desolate America with his best friend. The first 10 hours are a tad rough, but give it time and you will warm to Deacon and the game itself as its systems deepen and it opens up more and more. Away from the slow-burning story, the main attraction of Days Gone has to be the ability to take on giant hordes in whichever manner you see fit. Do you try and gun them all down one by one, or do you strategically place traps and make use of your environment to keep them at bay? Death comes quickly in Days Gone, so there's also no shame in putting pedal to the metal and getting out of there either. Number 4. TELLTALE'S The Walking Dead, Season 1. TELLTALE'S The Walking Dead belongs in the same conversation as other zombie games such as House of the Dead and Left 4 Dead 4 in terms of how they broke out of the subgenre to provide inspiration to many facets of game development. Many have tried to build on what Telltale created with this almost perfection of a season of narrative gaming, but few have come close. You play as Lee Everett, who's on his way to prison for the murder of his wife and her lover before the zombie apocalypse allows him an escape. He shortly meets Clementine, a young girl with missing parents, and the two develop a heartwarming surrogate father-daughter relationship over the course of 5 heartbreaking episodes. A mostly hands-off experience, it always felt like Telltale were trying to chase the dragon with every subsequent season of The Walking Dead, which, while still good, just didn't have the same heart. If you're yet to play this modern classic, change that. Number 3. Dying Light. Listen, we will stop banging on about Dying Light when everybody starts recognising how it's easily one of the best open world, best horror and best zombie games of the last decade, as they so widely should. Releasing at a time when the current generation of consoles were trying to find their footing, Dying Light didn't feel like an instant success. Instead, it's been a slow but steady influx of new players over the last years, helped by the fact that Techland have offered post-launch support that is second to none. Techland honed their craft after Dead Island, and it shows. The two games are worlds apart in terms of quality. Whether you want to parkour your way around the fictional harem with a friend or take on its many side quests and activities, Dying Light will no doubt surprise the cynical. Its sequel looks like a significantly more expansive game too, so watch this space. Number 2. Resident Evil 2. After years of waiting, Capcom finally released a remake for Resident Evil 2 in 2019 to great acclaim, so much so that it's hard to imagine any but the truly hardcore now going back to the original. Video game remakes are often very hard to get right, but it could be argued that Resident Evil 2 truly outstrips its predecessor from the original PlayStation. Allowing you to play as either Claire or Leon with distinct gameplay and narrative differences between each, Resident Evil 2 features a T-virus outbreak in Raccoon City that unleashes a whole host of nasty aberrations on the city, the iconic Mr. X perhaps being the most threatening of them all. He stalks you seemingly wherever you go, the thumping of his combat boots a constant reminder that death is near. A thing of visual beauty, Resident Evil 2 flexes the RE engine in every possible opportunity while offering a ton of replayability that most modern games could only dream of. The most remarkable thing about it, however, is that it ditches the tank controls and still makes zombies a horrifying threat. And at number 1, The Last of Us Remastered. The Last of Us near the top of another best of list from us. Who could have predicted such a bloody thing? Well, nothing if not consistent though, which is fitting considering how consistently this game has earned more and more fans in the year since its launch in 2013. Boasting one of the best introductions of any game in history, The Last of Us eventually settles into an affecting father and daughter dynamic with two of the greatest motion capture and voice performances to match from Troy Baker as Joel and Ashley Johnson as Ellie. In terms of the gameplay, imagine a more visceral, grounded Uncharted and you aren't a million miles away, though it's hard to imagine Nathan hopefully taping stuff together to create a weapon. The world of The Last of Us is unforgiving. So, how about those zombies? Well, if you want nearly invincible clickers that want to eat your face off in the dark, or a grotesquely bloated creature that dominates a gym to ruin your day, be our guest. Technically, they aren't zombies and infected instead, but nobody does the same for Danny Boyle's 28 Days Later. With a sequel due soon, you may as well play one of the 2010's best games if you somehow haven't yet. And there you have it, my sweet Avarian friends, that is our list of the best PS4 zombie games. As ever, we would love to know, did you agree with the list, did you disagree, is there anything that you would have swapped around or placed in that you feel like we missed out? Either way, let us know in the comments down below, we always love to hear what you think. If you enjoyed the video, please do consider giving it a like, smashing that notification bell as all YouTubers tell you to, and hitting the subscribe button to never miss out on all of our glorious video and list content on the YouTube channel and across the various social medias you see on screen now. Hopefully we'll see you in the next one, but until then, cuckoo.